Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth session of the European Learning and Teaching Forum 2021. I hope you all had a nice evening yesterday, at least those who joined us yesterday afternoon for the sessions. And we are really sorry we couldn't have the usual dinner where we would have been catching up and exchanging views on the sessions yesterday. But I think some of you were in the networking session in the end of the day, so with some of you we managed to do that. And those of you who are joining us as if this was the first session, welcome to the group of participants. My name is Tiia Loukkola. I'm the Director for Institutional Development at EUA and heading the team EUA team that is organizing this event. And I am acting as the Master of Ceremony here, guiding you here from one session to another. We are going to start the second day talking about breaking the boundaries, collaboration in very different formats. We've noticed in the different sessions already that collaboration is important for universities nowadays, and here we're going to have 3 cases and examples in this session. A couple of practicalities before I leave the floor to the speakers and the chair of the session. You have some ways of interacting with us. First of all, there is a chat box, which I see that some of you already have found. Over there, you can write down your greetings, make any remarks about the technical issues that you may have, or other remarks. Maybe you have a case you want to discuss that kind of lines up with the speaker's cases or practices. And then there is another tab next to it, which is Q&A. We would kindly ask you to focus your questions to the speakers in that tab. So we do hope you will propose questions that the chair then can take up. If you feel like you don't want to pose a question yourself, you can vote and put a thumbs up for those questions that you think are the most pertinent. There will also be some polls in this session. We are going to pick your brain a little bit, so please answer them and give some food for thought for our speakers and the chair. And finally, there is also a handout section where we have put some relevant links to documents that will be perhaps mentioned in this session. And there is also a program booklet, which includes more information about the forum and its program and some additional materials as well. So those are the key practicalities, except for one more. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on EUA YouTube channel after the forum. All those who have registered for the forum will receive a link, will receive an email with the links to all the recordings we are making in this event. But you can also go to the EUA YouTube channel and search for the video there. So this is where I will step out, and I leave the floor to the chair of the session, Marja Sutela from Tampere University, Finland, who is also a member of our Learning and Teaching Steering Committee at EUA. So Marja, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tiia. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Friday's first session. I hope that you had a very nice virtual networking cocktail last evening. I shall change the slide. So our topic this morning is how to transcend disciplinary, institutional and national boundaries to work towards a sustainable world. And the session will highlight the pedagogical benefits of collaboration in bettering the integration of knowledge and skills. Examples of these are, among others, challenge-based learning by working in interdisciplinary teams to find solutions to real-life problems, interinstitutional programs, and innovative staffing structures, as well as staff mobility. We have today 3 speakers. Peter Ruiten, I hope that I pronounced the last name correctly. He comes from Eindhoven University of Technology, Netherlands, and he works as an assistant professor on human-like machines within the Human Technology Interaction Research Group. He has also studied students' experiences with blended learning and has experiences with designing professional skills curricula. Our second speaker this morning is Gemma OSullivan from Trinity College Dublin, Ireland. She's a university and curriculum design specialist, and she was a European University Alliance SHARM-U research associate and is a doctoral candidate at Trinity College Dublin. Her research focuses on transdisciplinary or challenge-driven university, curriculum design, and European higher education policy. And our last speaker today is Annika Makkay-Kovacs from European University Foundation Brussels office, where she is working as policy and research officer. She focuses on staff mobility and digitalization of higher education in Europe. She has worked with the Erasmus Plus program at the internationalization of higher education for more than a decade at various universities. And as Tia said, my name is Marja Sutela. I'm chairing this session. I'm Vice President for Education at Tampere University, Finland. And we start our session by voting. There's an audience poll. You can find the poll, or maybe you can already see it. And the question is that, to what extent do your institutions and its staff take advantage of interdisciplinary, collaborative, and mobility-based approaches in a way that would enhance the quality of current provision? And these means are, for example, interdisciplinary or international teamwork, collaboration with regional partners or other institutions, or the industry sector, or staff mobility. And now you have a possibility to vote. I think I used the opportunity also myself. Okay. There are still some votes coming. Okay, at the moment, I think there are, alternative C. We are working on expanding such approaches, 42%, and quite near that B, such approaches are used, but there is room for improvement. Okay. And I think this kind of, when we are talking about challenge-based learning, innovative learning, and so on, this kind of education and teaching and learning are also in the core of European Universities Initiative. I think many of us are in those universities that are participating those projects. Okay, I think we can now move on to the presentations. And here you can see the topics of the presentations, and all 3 presentations will be delivered in a row, and the discussion session is after the presentation. And you can also submit, and please submit questions to the speakers through the question and ask tab. And when you like submitted questions, so that pushes popular questions on the top of the list. So Peter, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Maya, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm delighted to be able to share some of the work that we're doing at Innovation Space at Eindhoven University of Technology. And I'm presenting on behalf of A number of my colleagues as well. Anna is with us here today. Isabel, Birgit, and Miguel couldn't be here today, but they're delighted to see that many people are interested in this topic today as well. So I'm presenting this work on behalf of our work at Innovation Space. University of Technology in Eindhoven has a dedicated expertise center for challenge-based learning, where we bring students together with students from other disciplines, but especially also with people from outside of university. So we have companies, hospitals, organizations join us in trying to find solutions to the problems of today. And we do this in course-related projects, but we also have student teams who are working on societally relevant topics every day. And today I want to talk to you a bit about challenge-based learning. Challenge-based learning is an educational philosophy that has a few important characteristics. Now, for those of you who are familiar with challenge-based learning, you might already know this. But if challenge-based learning is a kind of a new topic to you, some of the key characteristics are that we take an interdisciplinary approach. This means that we try to solve problems by bringing people from different disciplines together. Those people, students in our case, are working on societally relevant challenges. So these are like big open questions that are brought in by organizations, by companies, by hospitals. And students collaborate with multiple stakeholders. So they have their academic depth that they need to still warrant, but they also need to think about the person who brought in the challenge, who wants something out of the work that they're doing. So these are some of the characteristics of challenge-based learning. And challenge-based learning in itself is at the center of the TUE educational strategy, because we really believe that CBL allows us to better integrate the theoretical knowledge and the professional skills that students have in one particular project. And we have a lot of experiments on the way to try to understand better how this works. How can we apply CBL in a wide variety of courses? And we're even thinking to open up much of our bachelor curriculum and replace existing courses with challenges and a challenge-based learning output. Now, the best example of such an experiment or such a case in which challenge-based learning is applied is ISBEP. This is the Innovation Space Bachelor End Project. And as the name tells us, this is an inter-program final Bachelor of Science project. So let me briefly introduce ISBEP to you by giving you an example. Now, this is Kim. Kim is a student biomedical engineering, and she has decided to do her Bachelor End project at Innovation Space. She wants to work together with people from different disciplines. Now, after seeing all of the different projects that she can choose from and an allocation procedure, she finds herself connected to 4 different students. And one is a mechanical engineer, we have an industrial designer, an electrical engineer, and an architect, for example, right? And these 5 students together form a team. And this team is asked to start thinking about a specific challenge that has been brought in by somebody from outside of university. Now, these students are not working by themselves. They get a lot of supervision, a lot of coaching from different types of coaches. And the first one that is for the students, often the most important, the most relevant one, is the coach from their own academic discipline. So each student gets a supervisor whose responsibility it is to safeguard the disciplinary depth in the project that they're working on. It's still a final Bachelor of Science project, right? So we need to have the scientific rigor in there. Now, in addition, the team is guided by a process coach, and this process coach is supplied by us, Innovation Space, and we really try to bring these students together in trying to find ways in which their different disciplines can be used to find a unified solution to the problem that they are facing. Now, in addition, we have some experts. One of those is the challenge owner, the person who brought in the challenge. This person often knows a bit more detail about the background of the topic that students are working on and can help them finding resources or maybe finding other experts with whom to talk. So this is the setup of ISBEP as we currently have it. Now, there's a lot of challenges that we are currently facing, and we're trying to find a way to solve these. And the first challenge that we see is that it is very difficult to make clear what everybody's role and responsibility is in these kinds of projects. There's many stakeholders involved, and the students are sometimes struggling in finding the balance between putting much more effort in their individual part of their bachelor project, which will ultimately give them a higher grade, or spend more time in the team aspect of the challenge-based learning project, which will give them a better team outcome. So we really need committed coaches that are willing to coach these students intensively, because they do need some more input and some more discussion with us to be able to overcome these challenges that they face themselves. Now, second challenge that we face is that there's a lack of clarity of intended learning outcomes. So all the students are coming to Innovation Space from different disciplines, and we facilitate their bachelor project, but they're still being assessed within their own discipline, and they need to obtain certain intended learning outcomes within their own discipline. So there's no unified list of intended learning outcomes for all students at Innovation Space, and we really think that it is important to have a dedicated list of these learning outcomes that's the same for all the students who do their BEP with us. And thirdly, there's a lack of clarity on the assessment criteria. I already hinted to this before, right? Students are assessed within their own disciplines, and we organize all kinds of activities that help them be a better team and get to a better outcome for the challenge. But this is only focusing on the group outcome, not so much on the individual outcome. So we really want to try to bring these two worlds together in a more smooth way. And we see that it is very important to also incorporate the professional skills properly in this project. Because if we do think that it is important to bring this theoretical knowledge and professional skills together in one project, this needs to be incorporated in the assessment procedures as well. So what we're doing here is we're trying to learn from constructive alignment as a framework and trying to apply this to ISBEP in further developing this and trying to make this challenge-based learning experiment, so to say, as successful as possible. Now, I don't think I need to explain to any of you what constructive alignment is, right? It's like trying to align intended learning outcomes with the teaching activities and the assessment. I did want to briefly mention it so you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about here. So what we're doing is we're trying to move towards a constructively aligned challenge-based learning course. And in order to achieve this, we have started this very big research project that's taking a couple of years. It has 3 dedicated phases. And the first phase has already been finished. The first phase was exploring the problem. And this problem exploration led to the challenges that I mentioned in the previous few slides, right? So we see a few challenges that need to be overcome in order to further develop the Innovation Space Bachelor project or challenge-based learning courses in general. Now, we're currently in phase 2, where we are working on the redesign of the whole course. So we're taking a co-creation approach. We're trying to fly in experts from all kinds of different disciplines and fields and different types of knowledge to help us think about how can we best align these intended learning outcomes with the teaching activities and the assessment methods without taking away the individual component that is so important for students in their final bachelor project. And the outcome of this should be an assessment plan. And we're currently at the stage where we have created a set of intended learning outcomes with a rubric that can be used multiple times throughout the course. And we're about to test this rubric with the students who are currently doing their BEP with us. Now, the third phase is hopefully we'll manage to find a great solution or a plan that shows the intended learning outcomes, the teaching activities, and the assessment that belongs with this. And then we need to implement and evaluate this, right? So it's important to think about how do we apply this to the course that we currently have, and does it give us back what we want it to give us back? So we're really trying to learn how can we make this challenge-based learning course a success for not only students but also for the challenge owners, for the academic coaches, or for university as a whole. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I'm very happy to join a discussion later in a bit. After today, you can definitely stay in touch with us. There's many ways of staying in touch with Innovation Space. If you Google any of our names, you should easily find our email addresses as well. But thank you for listening, and we'll have a nice discussion after. Thanks.
So thank you, Peter, for a very interesting presentation and how to make also a solid pedagogical course when it comes to the challenge-based learning. Our next speaker is Gemma OSullivan, and her presentation gives an example of a very ambitious European Universities Initiative project. So, Gemma, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria, and hello to everybody from Ireland today. It's fantastic to be here, and it was great to hear Peter's presentation there, actually, because Peter identified a lot of the challenges that we came across also in our own work in CHARMEU over the past year. So like Peter, I'm here today representing the work of numerous colleagues in CHARMEU, because of course it brought together 5 universities in this one project, but in particular my co-authors are Sylvia Gallagher from Trinity College Dublin and Sanne van Vught from Utrecht University. So CHARM European University was funded through the Erasmus Plus programme, so it was one of the first European universities funded, and we began work in December 2019 on, in a nutshell, we were modelling a transdisciplinary university model through the creation of a transdisciplinary master's in sustainability, or rather that tackled the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals and also the European Green Deal. So my focus today, because I know Peter spoke a lot about the pedagogy of challenge-based learning, and indeed challenge-based learning is at the heart of transdisciplinarity. So we encountered similar, I suppose, points of concentration regarding learning outcomes and assessment design in how to really fulfill challenge-driven learning. But my focus today will be on the staffing approach that we used, because as Peter mentioned, we needed to bring staff from multiple disciplines together. So the challenge was to pilot a transdisciplinary university structure through the master's programme, as I mentioned. But what our challenge was that we had 5 university partners, and at the heart of transdisciplinarity is bringing multiple disciplines together. And I suppose what we had at our disposal was 5 universities with 5 huge pools of talent and expertise, and also research expertise. And what we sought to do was to align that expertise with policy, so with European policy and with international policy and sustainability. So our first step was to do an analysis of the research strengths of our universities, an analysis of the educational provision of our universities, and from that we defined societal challenges together. So we came up with 3, that was food, water, and life and health. So through that process, we have gained consensus and full support from all 5 partners. I think that was very important from the outset, that the 5 universities had their strategic plans, that we were able to align these together and have full support from across the board. So as I mentioned, we wanted to utilise existing teaching staff from partner universities. So once we identified these challenge areas that we could all work together towards, we put a call out to our 5 universities. So we took different approaches in that regard. Some did targeted recruitment within their universities. Some did a call out. We had town halls. We did a snowball effect of networking. And from that, we organised our first webinar, where we had almost 200 people from across the 5 universities attend. So from that point of view, we created, I'll just move on to this slide. We created knowledge creating teams. So the knowledge creating teams had 2 layers. There was the core team, and then there was the expanded team. So at the core were a group of people who would be responsible for designing the programme. And you'll see the programme here to my right, which was the Masters in Global Challenges for Sustainability. So there were 3 phases to the programme that we designed. We designed this at the outset before bringing these knowledge creating teams on board. So the phase 1 was a preparatory phase. And in this phase, there are 3 10-credit modules. Phase 2 then was the flexible phase. And this phase was the phase in which we went into depth in those 3 societal challenges areas, and the final phase, which was the capstone phase. So what was at the heart of this was the challenges within the areas of food, water, and life and health. So in phase 1, what we identified with our knowledge creating teams, and we did this through a series of content creation workshops, was we tried to identify what are the transversal skills that students would require to be able to manage complexity. So I suppose what we did at the very beginning with our teams was to define transdisciplinarity together, because there are multiple definitions of transdisciplinarity. And in fact, it is a pedagogy, but it is also an epistemology that is developing. So what we really learned from this process was that our teams themselves, and we had 60 members of these knowledge creating teams representing almost 60 disciplines, that when we brought them together within these societal challenges areas, we asked them then to identify problem spaces within this. So you'll see we had the food theme. Within this, we brought them together in content creation workshops and worked to define problem spaces. So we had a layered approach where we went from a societal challenge of food into problem spaces within food aligned with policy. And then within that, what are challenges? The challenge we faced was that we had to write a master's program with 60 people in just under 3 weeks. So we did this in concentrated in workshops together, all remotely, as you know, because it was during the pandemic in 2020. But what we learned from that process was that a clear agreement on what transdisciplinarity was for these team members, and where challenge-based learning fit into that was very important from the outset. So through this process, our knowledge creating teams wrote module learning outcomes. They wrote modules for this middle phase, for the flexible phase, for example, here on food. And they also fed back into that preparatory phase. So as we developed that flexible phase in the middle, we were able to feed back into the team that was writing the content for the preparatory phase. So you'll see that the 3 modules there were social innovation, sustainability, and transdisciplinary research. So as we got into more depth on the disciplinary expertise that was needed to support exploration of the food theme, we would feed back into that preparatory team phase in writing that module content. We came back to, in transdisciplinarity research, we came back to complexity theory, to systems theory. In social innovation, that was design thinking. In sustainability, we looked at looking at policy within sustainability, looking at definitions of sustainability. And also we looked at some of the key transversal skills, which were collaboration, working with extra academic stakeholders, and communication skills. And I'd just like to move to the last. So emphasizing, I suppose, at the heart of this project was that it was an experiment. So we had a tremendous opportunity in 2020 to experiment with the design of a university and a staffing structure as if we had complete freedom in starting from the ground up, as it were. But what we were very aware of was that we were working within traditional structures. So ultimately, when it came to program approval, we had to work within the systems that were already in existence. So ideally, designing a master's program and bringing the staffing together, we would have had the freedom, I suppose, to design a program and to run a program in a way that really realized transdisciplinarity, which is working with extra academic actors from the outset, which was having great flexibility in designing learning outcomes that were maybe less traditional than normal, in using a portfolio approach for assessment. But when it came to program approval, which we had to pursue in the summer of 2020, we found that we did have to temper that innovation to a great degree. But even tempering that innovation, I think, allowed us to show our 5 university partners and to show the Erasmus Plus program where there are areas where we do need to be more flexible in governance and in regulations in our own universities. I think we also found out that staff recruitment. So the beauty of this process was that we could draw on staff of our existing universities. So we had that flexibility in that staff were full-time staff member of universities, but they were seconded onto this project. And that allowed us to have that flexibility around societal challenges. But it also meant that different partners had different approaches. And as we're in the implementation phase, we can see that those approaches, perhaps if we had uniformity from the outset, that would have been more beneficial. In terms of curriculum development, as I mentioned, having agreement on what transdisciplinarity is from the outset, and I've supplied a handout today on our educational principles. So we did get agreement on challenge-based learning, on transdisciplinarity. But I think when you bring those teams of people together, it's very important to establish them as a team. And I know Peter mentioned the challenges for students, but also there are a lot of challenges for staff because they're working together for the first time. So agreeing that approach from the outset is something that's very important. And also involving extra academic actors from the very outset is something that's very important. So thank you very much, Maria, for your time today. I hope I did justice to what is actually a very complex project, but also the slide presentation that I prepared is up online, and it will perhaps go into some of these areas in more detail.
So thank you, Gemma, for your very interesting presentation. And now we are going to move on to our third presentation, which is Aniko Makkay-Kovacs, how to enhance and facilitate quality in teaching mobility in Europe. Aniko, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And I am just finding my slides here. Yes. So good morning, everyone, and it is also my great pleasure to join this seminar on this very, very important and trending topic. My name is Aniko, and I am representing the Teach with Erasmus Project consortium, and my co-authors in this session, Laszlo from Eötvös University of Budapest, Natalie and Sebastian from UniLaSalle from France, and Vicky from UNICA, the network of universities from the capitals of Europe, and I myself work at the European University Foundation. And so, as you could see already in the program, our project approaches this topic from another angle, the point of view of the higher education institution and what can they do with the already existing programs, for example, the Erasmus Plus Teaching Staff Mobility Scheme, to have a better quality of education and a better knowledge and skills transfer. So in the focus of our project are the academics, because they are playing a very important and essential role as educators, researchers, and catalysts of international cooperation. And it is very often not recognized. However, it is very, very important to support them and motivate them in these roles. Why is it important to support them? I hope you can see my slides rolling. No? Okay, now, yes. So why is it important to support them? Well, several surveys showed that academics are key actors of the Erasmus Mobility Program. They are supporting the student mobility. They are responsible for credit recognition. They are responsible very often for interinstitutional agreements and also for internationalization. And what happens if a higher education institution is successful in facilitating an active pool of academics who are closely involved in international cooperation? Well, the university will naturally have a more competitive curricula on the international market. They will have better skilled student and staff bodies. They will have a more competitive range of methodologies applied in teaching and an overall higher quality of education. So what are the challenges the higher education institutions are facing when supporting academics in cooperating in different international programs or mobility programs? Well, one of the challenges which our research showed is that the mobility of academics is a rather unexplored area. We just do not really know what is happening there. We do not have too much data there and too many research or projects which is working on this issue. And since we do not have too much data and information, it is not really possible to measure the quality And also, higher education institutions are struggle to support the academic staff, for example, finding a proper partner for mobility. The professors have to rely on their own scientific network, which has actually its limits. And talking about the professors, so what are the academics, the challenges which the academics are facing when trying to participate in any international cooperation or mobility program? Well, one of the most important questions is, how do I find time for these activities? Actually, we asked, and many of the teachers and academics are using their spring or autumn break for this activity, because they just don't have the time during the active semester and they don't have substitution. And how to find a proper partner who is going to host me, who is going to have a similar teaching and a scientific area. And also, which methods do teachers use during mobility? Because maybe they are excellent on their own scientific field, but they struggle about how to transfer this knowledge to the student, especially in an international environment. So the current system is mainly focuses on the same pool of academics who has their own network built up in 15 or 20 years. But for a junior staff, it is extremely challenging to find proper time and partner to be able to realize such a program. So we have this nice pool of academics, but they actually face several challenges when participating in international cooperation programs, like the ones actually have been listed in the previous two presentation. So after hearing this, here comes my first question to you, to the audience. So what are the challenges you facing when realizing teaching mobility or teaching mobility projects or any international cooperation project? And what I would like to ask you is to leave your comment on this in the chat box. And I will just take a look if anyone already added some of the challenges. Please feel free to do that during the entire presentation, actually. Okay. So to tackle these challenges, the Teach with Erasmus Project Consortium have been formed to recognize the importance of academics and teachers in international cooperation projects, and also to somehow tackle teaching mobility in Europe today. So first of all, we wanted to see the state of play. What is happening today in teaching mobility in Europe, and then how it is possible to support teachers and academics in participating mobility and international cooperation programs. How do we provide them with the proper methodological support? What can we do there? And how to make it more accessible, how to provide a platform where they can meet and find a new teaching mobility opportunities. So in this presentation, I would like to share with you the first three main outcomes of this project, which aim to support academics in these challenges and also the institutions. So obviously, the first outcome is the Teach with Erasmus research report, which you can also find here in the handouts, or if you click on the slides, or if you type in very easily teachwitherasmus.eu to your browser, you will just find the project homepage, and there you can read the research report. Also, based on the research report, a quality and impact tool for teaching mobility assessment have been developed to support the teachers and also the institutions with different tools to measure and tackle quality of teaching mobility in their own institution. Also, the teaching mobility at EU test site have been developed. This is currently being developed, so this is only a test site. So first, I will just talk about a little bit of this quality and impact tool. It has two main parts, one for the institutions and one for the academics. So for the institution, you will find some guidelines, for example, on how to support internationalization, or an inventory for teaching mobility results, or a review of internal communication, because our research showed that, for example, internal communication in the institution matters very much when we talk about teaching mobility. Several teachers or academics, they just don't know that they have this opportunity, or they also can apply for this opportunity. Also, the other part of this tool is a tool for academics. So here you will find, for example, a course portfolio or innovative pedagogical method database on how to teach international students, and also, for example, help to get useful feedback from your student and how to evaluate your own teaching in this international environment. And the other outcome I wanted to highlight to you from the project is the platform itself. So as I mentioned already, this is currently being developed, but it's already available on the links which have been shared already in the chat and also in the supporting part of this platform. So what is this platform? It's a meeting place for academic staff. Here you can find and offer teaching mobility opportunities, invite or applied for different teaching mobility opportunities. So we invite you to visit the site and test it and give us feedback. And a little bit about the sustainability aspect of this project. So we believe that by providing this platform and these tools, we will have a more cost-effective grant management and a more cost-effective travel of teachers, being more conscious about this. This causes naturally environmental sustainability, and since this is a community-based initiative, it also supports social sustainability. And this is the first EU-level digital platform for teaching mobility. And so my last question to you is that at the first glance, are these tools provide solution for your challenges with teaching mobility? Please let us know in the chat. And I thank you very, very much for your attention. Please ask us if you have any questions, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Annika, for your interesting presentation. And then we have time to move on to the discussion part in our session. And there I can see quite many questions already. And there's a question concerning challenge-based learning. What would you say are the differences between challenge-based learning and problem-based learning? Very good question. Who would like to start? Peter, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I already answered part of this question in there. Now, there's of course a number of differences between these two approaches. And like the answer that I gave already in the Q&A session is that students are working on open-ended challenges. What we often see in problem-based learning is that we give students like a very well-defined problem that they need to solve, and often educators know what the solution is going to be, or at least know the direction of the solution, right? With challenge-based learning, it is much more open. So we give students like a very big open problem that can be tackled from all kinds of different perspectives, and often like based on the disciplinary background of these students or the interests of these students, they can take many different approaches. So that's one key difference. Second one that I do want to mention also is that in problem-based learning, often we see that students are working together with students from their own discipline, from the same department or faculty, right? Like students are often working together in a course, and then all of them have this similar or the same background knowledge. Now, with challenge-based learning, we bring people from a large variety of disciplines together to work on these solutions. So I think those are a few key differences between the two.
Okay, thank you. Gemma and Annika, could you also turn on your camera? So it's kind of easier to discuss. I hope we don't have any technical problems. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. There's also another question concerning challenge-based education, and challenge-based education sounds a very innovative way of implementing a student-centered education, but you need a strong back office scientific tutors, process coaches, etc. How sustainable is it? Peter, would you like to start again?
Sure. Yeah. So this is indeed something that we need to solve, right? We really need to think about this, because this question often comes across. I already said a few things on that as well. And it's really a topic of discussion because when we talk to educators about what we're doing, the first question is, how do we scale this up? Because if students need so many coaches and supervisors, how is it possible that if you want to do this for a larger population, maybe even all the bachelor students in university, how are you going to supervise this? Now, there's a few things that we think are important, and one is that we need to basically reschool our teachers to go from teacher to a coach. So they're not standing in front of a classroom teaching everything to these students, because all the knowledge can be given in video lectures and online courses. And there's a lot of online opportunities, especially we found out about this year, that we can give students to get this basic knowledge. And then this teacher can coach the students through the process. And if these teachers are properly trained to be a coach, then they can coach a large number of students, and then it's possible to scale this up. But of course, a number of big steps need to be taken before we reach that point.
Okay, thank you. And there's a question. Okay, the questions are moving up. I think here's a question to Gemma. Creating an MA within 3 weeks is awesome. Congratulations. What were the biggest challenges within the 3 weeks? What were the surprises? Gemma.
Thanks very much, Maria. Well, it was a case of needs must, we say in Ireland, because our programme approval timeline changed. And also we, because of the pandemic, we did lose about a month. And the only reason for that was because our university partners and senior academics were under so much pressure that they had to devote their time elsewhere. So I suppose that's why we had to do it within 3 weeks. It probably wouldn't have been our choice. But what we found was that it was possible. Much to the horror, I'd say, of a lot of university communities to imagine it, but it is possible. What we found was facilitation was absolutely vital, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to mention that. So having neutral facilitators who were trained in transdisciplinarity was very, very important. And the Utrecht approach was educational scientists. At Trinity, we were lucky in that myself and one of my colleagues, Jake Byrne, have training in transdisciplinarity. So, but what we found was we had 2 facilitators per team. So we had 4 content creation teams. We had 1 for the first phase, we had 3 for the middle phase, and then we had 2 facilitators per team. So that also has been borne out in research on effective transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary research teams. So we took that approach for these pedagogical teams as well. We found it was very important, and the staff really appreciated. Then everybody could come to the process with their disciplinary expertise and feel free, knowing that somebody else was there to mediate with them and for them. So that was a really important outcome.
Thank you, Gemma. And I think here's also another question for you. Okay. Now I kind of lost it. Okay. I move on. Okay. I have a question to Annika. You were talking about staff mobility, and due to the COVID pandemic, we have been not able to travel abroad. What do you think about virtual mobility, which is now part of the new Erasmus Plus program? What new possibilities does it bring?
Well, yes, obviously the pandemic situation caused a lot of challenge in the entire arena of the international cooperation project. And indeed, for teachers and academics to move abroad, it was impossible. But I think within these virtual opportunities, I think the entire atmosphere of teaching mobility also changed. And I think this is for better, because from now on, we know that there is a possibility to do part of the teaching online, which is exactly what Peter also mentioned, those contents which you can just teach online to transfer the knowledge, and leave all the physical mobilities for those actions, for those activities which really requires personal involvement and to be there and be a facilitator, to be an active partner of the students during teaching. I think this is really, really important, and I think this is one of the very positive outcome of this entire pandemic situation, and I'm very happy with this. And within the platform which we are developing for mobility, it will be also possible, to indicate if you want to have a blended version of the teaching mobility, if you would like to even do it fully online as a virtual exchange program. So several opportunities, and I think it is looking really, really good for the future from here.
If I may add something to this, I completely agree with this, because if indeed we are able to transform this theory transfer to a more online environment, then what we need on campus, the physical education, is a much smaller scale. And then it also allows us to invite these students to come to campus in smaller groups, right? We can't put students in lecture theaters anymore, because we can't put so many people together in one room. So if we only have them come in smaller groups, it also allows us to welcome these students on campus. And I think this is very important for them as well.
And also for a shorter period, you don't have to take the whole term, 3 months, but maybe 2 weeks or maybe some days to visit the foreign country and the foreign university. Okay, the next question. Does it come sometimes to the situation that student teams fall out due to the incompatibility of personal issues? How do the students proceed in that case? Can students change the problems they are working on during their studies? I think this was to the Peter.
Yeah, please. I think so. I also answered part of this. So it can happen, right? Students can struggle more than other students. But I think the one of the beautiful parts of doing a challenge-based learning course is that there is this flexibility to change directions, and we are prepared for this longer period of, let's say, overhead work. We fully understand that if students are going to work together with students from different disciplines for the first time at the end of their bachelor program, they are going to speak different languages. Just a few months ago, I had a discussion with a group of students, and then they were talking, students from different disciplines, and they were talking about obtaining information from a system. And then I asked each of these students, what do you think information means? There were no the same answers. Each student had a different perspective on what the word information means. For one, it was data. For the other one, it was talking to people. And for a third one, I think it was a technical test or something. And getting to know what is meant with these different words and the different language they use does take some time. So students do need some time to get going. And we are well prepared to guide them through this process. So if we see that they're falling behind a bit, we step in, we try to guide the process a bit, we bring them together, and we have a discussion with them about maybe unclarities or other things that they're struggling with, and then set them out again. So yes, it does happen that students are lagging behind, but we are trying to notice that at an early stage and then try to bring them together and help them forward.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is to Gemma. To what level do the universities participating in the case study actually consider implementing the master program, or other universities that you might have heard from?
And thank you very much to Angelica for asking this question, because it's such a whistle-stop tour of a presentation. I didn't get to mention that the Masters will run in September 2021. So it will run, and also I didn't mention our 5 partners. So Trinity, Utrecht University, as you know, University of Barcelona, the University of Montpellier, and Otvos-Lorand University in Budapest. So the university will run. There will be students on the 5 campuses. Trinity was the main approval because in Ireland, universities can approve programs. They don't have to go through the government. So that was different across the 5 partners. So it will run in September 2021. It will be evaluated as part of this the project, and a toolkit will be produced at the end. So already you'll see in the handout section the educational principles and the curriculum design blueprint, and also in my presentation. So this is a framework for a master's program that can be used by any organization. It can revolve around any societal challenges, and it's a master's level. So our key goal was how to develop a transdisciplinary student educated to handle complex challenges, but at master's level. So that was the key outcome. So it's there for everybody to share and to improve on as well, because this is the very beginning, and we've learned a lot as we're going.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. I think we have 5 minutes left in our session, and I think kind of this is for the last question, and this is for Peter. Challenge-based learning is very interesting topic, and very important and maybe also difficult question. Peter, how do you assess students then with challenge-based learning?
Yeah, I saw this question, and then I was thinking, well, that is that's the holy grail at the moment, right? Like, we are struggling to find a way to do this. So currently we're leaning towards like focus on like process and improvement in terms of these students collaborating, but then it is more focused on the soft skills rather than the theoretical rigor that's in there. So we're trying to set up a system where from the first year of the bachelor, we are trying to like replace core courses. So think about calculus and statistics with a challenge. And to solve the challenge, students are going to need knowledge that they would otherwise obtain in those core courses. So we will create online modules where students can obtain that information. They can test themselves. And I think they also then would need to like pass a few of those modules to at least get the grade or the ECTS for the core course, and then apply the knowledge and the challenge. Now, how exactly we're going to assess the challenge itself, we don't know yet, and I hope I'll be back next year to tell you more details about that specifically. I think it's a very good question.
So thank you. We have still 3 minutes left, and maybe the final question to the Peter also. So what do you think about the learning outcomes, so about the students' experiences? So the kind of normal or the old course and the new challenge-based course, are there differences in learning outcomes?
Well, yes and no. So I think the difference is that there's an extension. So what we're hoping to achieve starting in September this year is that the ISBEP course is going to be, instead of 10 ECTS, it will be 15 ECTS. And those extra ECTS will be specifically focusing on the intended learning outcomes that apply to ISBEP, right? To this challenge-based learning course. So students need to deal with uncertainty. Students need to be able to find what is the specific problem that they can solve, and they need to be able to come together with different disciplines, think about how to prototype solutions. So all those things are going to be part of the course, in addition to the intended learning outcomes that students still need to obtain for their own discipline, right? Like, it's still a final bachelor project. We don't want to take any theoretical depth away from that. So instead, we want to extend it with extra learning outcomes. So they're not necessarily different, they're just more.
Okay, thank you. So many thanks to you, Peter, Gemma, Annika, for your presentations, and many thanks to the audience. So there has been many very interesting questions that you have delivered, and I think we have a very lively and also interesting discussion. So many thanks and applause to you. And I think now I turn the floor to the Tia, if you want to say the final words.
Yes, thank you very much indeed for kicking off the second day of our forum. in a wonderful way, and I hope the audience got good ideas. And I see, at least in Twitter, for instance, we've had you've been quoted a few times saying some of the key messages from your presentations. So it is now time for us to have a break of 30 minutes, and after that we will continue with the new topics. And there's been a lot of discussion about the staff, but also about students. And in the next session, we will really turn our focus to the students and how to get them on board in the sustainability discussion. So I look forward to meeting you all in half an hour in a new room. So let's have a coffee or tea in the meantime. Thank you.